Mhm.
I've done this a number of times now, but okay, I think, Jean, we are live. So it looks that way anyway. So listen, welcome, Jean. I just want to say thank you for joining us, and for people who are watching now or will be watching later. I've been doing the Zoom chats periodically throughout COVID. We unfortunately continue to live in a time where we can't get together in person, but we've all become masters of Zoom and other technologies, and it allows us an opportunity to have conversations like this. And tonight I am really, really, really thrilled to be joined by somebody who's a mentor to me, a dear friend, my predecessor as a member of Parliament in Etobicoke Lakeshore, has been a role model of mine for many, many years and continues to be so today. And somebody who really especially needs no introduction to Etobicoke Lakeshore, but the Honorable Jean Augustine. And it's particularly important that we're chatting in the month of February, Jean, because this is the 25th anniversary of Black History Month, and we all know that you are responsible for getting the ball rolling on that, and well, thank you for that. So anyway, we'll get into all of that, but just want to say hello and thanks, and we can chat about a whole variety of things. So how are you doing tonight?
Well, I'm so very pleased to be with you, and happy that we're talking to folks in Etobicoke Lakeshore, the people I love so dearly, and to see that you are continuing to do really good work and making sure that we connect with people, because I think that's the important thing. We have to connect with people, and especially this past year and where we are now in these challenging times. So glad to be with you, my MP.
Yeah, well, when you say that, I still sort of shiver a little bit because you're a tough act to follow. I've said that many, many times, but it continues to be true. You're still known by everybody in the riding and loved by all. So that's you're a tough act to follow. I'll say it again, Jean. But thanks for everything you do. So listen, so we're going to chat about Black History Month, but people know that you were the member of Parliament here from 1993 until 2005. But I think there's probably a lot of things about you people may not know. So I thought maybe we could start by chatting first about your pre-political career and sort of what led you to making the jump into politics in the first place.
Well, Jamie, it's a long story. And
well,
60 years long since I've been in Toronto and involved in Toronto. I started out as a social activist. I came here in 1960, and I think everyone knows what Toronto was like in 1960, with no, and because of your background, I'll say, we had no Charter of Rights and Freedom at the time. We had no Section 15 that we can pull to. We had no Human Rights Code as we know it today. We had no Landlord and Tenant Act that would, that the landlord couldn't say it's for rent, but not for you. We had no police community relations. We had no school board talking to and trustees, talking to parents. It was a whole different social justice setting or scheme. And prejudice, things were in the system that needed to be fixed. And as we moved as Canadian society to talk about, who we are, that we were multi-religious, multi-ethnic, multicultural, multi-religious, etc., as we begin to identify ourselves, we realize that we have to talk about things that would make us the diverse society that we are. And one of the things I say all the time is that Canada has rules and policies and guidelines and legislative processes that buttress up a lot of the things in the society that create really ways and means for people to become engaged in the society so that we can all move forward. So I started from the, from the bottom up.
Yeah. Now you were, a lot of people know, but maybe not everybody again, but you were a teacher for a long time and and a principal as well. So tell us a little bit about that. What's good? I know you were a principal here in Etobicoke for some time.
Yes, I was with
So how
the,
long were you teaching and how much did that sort of lead you into it?
oh, I was in the education system. I was teaching for about 35 years. Um, I started I was at Teachers College, 1961, 62. I started with it was called the Separate School Board at the time, the Metropolitan Toronto Separate School Board, the Catholic Board. I started there in 63, 64, and worked my way up, classroom teacher, vice principal, principal, with my supervisory officers, papers, etc. And
Yeah.
moved around the city. About 5 years they move you to another place. So I was in Jalen Finch as vice principal. I was on Royal York Road, St. Felix as principal. I was at St. Gregory's.
I forgot about St. Felix. I knew you were at St. Greg's. That's right.
Yeah, I was.
I went to shop class at St. Felix when I was in grade
Exactly.
7, I think. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And that was very helpful to me, the shop classes, because the home ec and industrial arts, as we called it, because we had about 5 or so schools that came to St. Felix for industrial arts and family
Yeah.
studies. And so as a result, all the kids in Etobicoke Lakeshore knew who I was because they came to my school, as it were, for those classes from their schools. So when I went knocking at doors, someone, oh, you were the principal. Oh, so that was
Yeah.
really, there were some people remember some stories, and I remember a lot of the kids, especially the ones who gave me grief. and
Well,
but
they stand out, obviously. Yeah.
they spent time
It's a
in
good,
the office.
it's a good thing I wasn't there then, Gina. You'd remember me for that too, probably. That's
Yes.
right. I forgot you were at St. Felix. And then, so did you go to St. Felix and then you went to St. Greg's?
Yes, St. Greg's came after St. Felix. St. Greg's was the
Okay.
last school I was at before I was pulled into the board as with supervisory responsibilities, and I went from there to be chair of Metro Toronto Housing Authority, MTHA
Right.
as it was called, and that was a secondment to head the Metro Toronto Housing Authority, and I
So I
spent.
mean, if you stop there, you had an incredibly successful career. You know, teacher, principal, housing authority. I mean, that's remarkable for anybody. And then you decide to take the plunge and go into politics. And you were elected in '93. But why don't you talk a little bit about how that came to be?
Well, it was,
I know some of the history, but people listening may not.
yes, I know. And your mother was one of my big supporters. At
Yeah.
the same time, I think it's important for me to again reflect on the fact that as chair of Metro Toronto Housing, I was also engaged in a whole series of community activities and activism. Um, I was on the board of the Hospital for Sick Children, the only Black woman on the board. And I found myself in several places where I was the only Black person. I was on the board of York University, Stephen Lewis Foundation, and on and on and on, the board of Harborfront. And it was the work that I was doing there and the work that carrying the responsibility for these thousands, hundreds of thousands of people who lived in rent to get to income, and looking at the treatment that was afforded them by the media, where anything that happened, things were written up about them in negative ways. And when I got there, actually in 1988, the crack cocaine had just started to hit some of the high rises, etc. And the work that I did around there. And I think this is what brought me to the attention of the political people. And maybe I can tell you this, Jamie. The first person who asked me to run was our present mayor, John Tory, because John Tory was
Oh,
on
is
the
that right?
board of Harborfront with me, and I guess he saw me work on the board of Harborfront. Saw me defend issues on the board of Harborfront. So then he called me and said, "Look, I was asked to run the campaign for Kim Campbell, and
I was
I
just going to
would."
say he probably didn't ask you to run for the Liberals.
No. Remember, he was conservative, very
No, I know.
conservative.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of had coffee with him, and I said, no. I didn't see myself running for politics. And things have changed a bit now, because in those days, politicians were supposed to be corrupt, they were supposed to be thieves, they were supposed to be dishonest. And I didn't see myself in any of those categories. And so politics, was just not something I had in my career plan. And
Well, I'm
then,
I'm glad you think that's changed, just for the record.
yes, it has. I mean, you don't see headlines and other things as we did in, around that issue. And women in particular were not treated well in the scripting. Fun was made of their voice, of their height, of their, so it was not a place that I thought I wanted to be in. And then Bob Ray and Evelyn Gigantes, who was the minister at the time, asked me to run for the NDP, and I said no. And then, of course, the crew from the Liberal Party came sometime later, and I was invited to have a conversation, and then another, and eventually the question came. You have had the experience, you've had the whatnot, why not? And Sheila Copps, of course, at the time was pushing for 30% of women, more women in the parliament. And so there was a real push to get more women. And of course, I was asked as a woman of color, as a Black woman, to be part of that 1993 team.
Well, I mean, that's an issue that as you know, is close to my heart, getting women involved in politics, and I come by that genetically because of my mother, who you mentioned
Yes.
a few minutes ago. My mom was a very vocal advocate trying to get more women to run, and she started
fundraising and everything.
Fundraising. She helped start the Judy LaMarche Fund, which was
That's right.
created to raise money for women candidates in the Liberal Party, and it helped a lot of people get their start. There's still a few
Yes.
around in Ottawa today who remember the early days and how tough it was. And
yes.
so you were a pioneer in so many ways, Jean. So that takes us to 93. 93, we were coming off of two consecutive conservative majorities, Brian Maloney governments. You were running when it wasn't a sure thing to be running as a Liberal that year. So, and tell us a bit about the campaign. I know you and Connie were the dynamic duo back then in all your campaigns.
Yes, actually.
So tell us about some of those challenges.
Well, when I said yes to the David Smith and the etc., I can call names, but I guess yes, I would be a candidate for the Liberal Party. And when it was decided that Mr. Chrétien as a leader would appoint a number of women across the country. I think they appointed about 13 of us at the time. I asked for two things. I said, yes, I will do this, provided that you provide me with a good campaign manager, because I hadn't run any campaigns before, and a good fundraiser. Oh, yes, no problems. And as soon as I said yes, they were gone. So, so I had to put my campaign together, and Connie McAuliffe was really. She had just come off city council. She was in those days we had, the Etobicoke Council, and she was on the Etobicoke Council. And she said, I'll help you. And she stuck with me the 13 years.
Well,
It
look,
was,
I remember working on your campaigns, and Connie is the taskmaster. She was good at it, obviously, because you won every time.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So I've heard you talk about you were sort of the campaign was the little engine that could, because it was a small but dedicated group of people that made it all happen, especially in the early
With
days.
little money. We had
With
no
little
money, and at the same time we were determined not to go into debt, not to borrow and whatnot. So we raised and we spent, and we raised and we spent. So this is why I say it was like the little engine that could. I know I can. I know I can.
Yeah.
At the same time, you know, the folks in the Etobicoke election, this is why I love them all. This is why I continue to live and participate. The support I had from just about everybody in the Etobicoke election, and the goodwill that there was. And oftentimes when we talk about racism and we talk about prejudice and whatnot, I tell the stories of, knocking on doors, and people would tell me all kinds of things about not liking the Liberal Party, or not liking Mr. Chrétien, or making, snide remarks about the platform or whatever. But no one said to me, I won't vote for you because you're a Black woman. No one said that to me in all the campaigns. People were always respectful. People were always, they saw the message that I was bringing, and they either ideologically supported or they were opposed, and they told me so. And I was always respectful of the viewpoints that I heard, and tried to bring everybody, on side.
Well, and you did a tremendous job at it too, because like I can remember canvassing with you in more than one of those elections, and second and third election in particular, you were so well known and so highly regarded. It would take so long to canvass because everybody wanted to come out and talk to you. So we could never get on the street fast enough, because when you're campaigning, the goal is to move down the street, knock on as many doors as you possibly can. But people love chatting with you, and you love chatting with them. So it was, but that was a testament to you, Jean, and you worked incredibly hard for the riding, and that's why people still hold you in such high regard now. So. So thank you for doing all that. So, okay, so then you're elected in '93, and take us through the process leading up to your motion for Black History Month and becoming a minister. Because people know this, but you were the first Black woman elected in the Parliament of Canada, and you were the first Black woman cabinet minister in the history of Canadian government. Two remarkable accomplishments.
Well, I considered it an honor.
Start after '93. So
after '93, I got to Ottawa. October '93 was the election. I got to Ottawa.
Yeah.
I was, within the first couple of months, I was parliamentary secretary to the Prime Minister, Jean Chrétien, and really started the work. I was passionate about the history of Canada, knowing about our Indigenous people, learning about our Indigenous people. As an immigrant coming in, you want to know about everything and everything around you. I also was a teacher of social studies, and I saw nothing in the textbooks as I was teaching about people of African descent or people of Indigenous people. If there was anything at all, Jamie, it was either the footnote or the column on the side, but not integrated into the script. And so I used to make up. When I say make up, I would go to the library and get information and write up modules. And I always felt if there was an opportunity for someone at the top to say, you should do this, you should learn this. And especially when we were into the whole looking at our policy around multiculturalism, that we were, and looking at all the things we were saying, you know, about this diverse Canada, the fact that that each and every part of our society should be looked at, etc., etc. And so I felt that if we can officially say that this history that is not known, this history of Canada, that we started in, that the first Black person who set foot in Canada is recorded as a navigator on a ship, a Black man. He was not a slave, an enslaved person. He knew the Mi'kmaq language, and so he made it easy for the Champlain expedition to speak, to land, because he was able to use his language to speak to the Mi'kmaq and then translate to French. I knew also that there was slavery in Canada, that there was buying and selling of human beings, of Black people. I knew the United Empire Loyalists brought their slaves with them. And I know that there were parts of Canada where the lands that were promised to people were not given, etc., etc. But there was none of that in textbooks. And so when we were copying in Toronto, we were copying Black History Month activities, because Black History Month has been celebrated, or has been celebrated in the United States since 1926. And of course, the men who worked on the railroad, going back and forth, would bring back posters and information about Black Americans, and that we were doing this. And the Negro Women's Club of Toronto were also engaged in looking at and studying Black History Month, or celebrating Black History Month. And the city of Toronto, around 1950 or so, had acknowledged Black History Month. And so over and over, I knew that we had to have it done officially. So when the Black History Society asked for a proclamation by the federal government, and I was told, look, we're sending a letter back to these people who are asking us for a proclamation, because as federal government, we don't do proclamations. And so I said, well, what can we do? They said, well, you can have a private member's bill if you want to do something, or you can have a motion. A private member's bill, as you know, Jamie, you do the bill, you go through all of this long, long process, then it's put in a hat, and they pull, almost like a lottery, right? And I had been buying the OLG, the lottery tickets for how many years, never won. And I thought, if I do a private member's bill, put it in the hat, the chance of my getting it pulled is almost negligible.
So this sorry to interrupt. So this was in your second term. This was after the 97 election then, right?
No. This was 95. We were elected in 93. So that was 2 years later.
So what number did you draw? So just so the listeners know, so at the beginning of every parliamentary session, there's a lottery for all the MPs.
I did not get involved in lotteries.
Oh, you didn't?
I said, no. I said I wanted a motion. There were two choices that I was advised. One is a private member's bill, which I said no to. And the other is I can do a motion. And a motion can be put any time before the House. You know this. For example, we just had a motion.
That's actually changed now. The motions are now part of the lottery process. So
no, I don't think so, because Mr. Singh just got a motion to add a certain group to the list of.
Yeah, that was done on unanimous consent after question period.
Yeah,
I've actually got
a motion.
Yeah. Oh, so is that the way you did it, on unanimous consent after?
That's right.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. See, that I didn't know, Jean.
Yes, I went for unanimous consent. I went for unanimous consent, because when I showed them what I wanted to say in this motion, I was told by Jerry Yano and a few people who were really helping, members and the legal who were helping to shape things. They say, no, if you want a motion, you have to go straight to the facts. No qualifiers, because if you put things in there, it becomes a debatable. So you don't want debate. And so I'll read the motion to you, which is very simple. I started with the motion by talking about my seconders. I had a seconder from the NDP, a seconder from the Bloc Québécois, and a seconder from the Reform Party at the time. And the motion is a very simple one. It's just 5 lines. It says that this House take note of the important contribution of Black Canadians to the settlement, the growth, and the development of Canada, the diversity of the Black community in Canada, and its importance to the history of this country, and ask that the House recognize February as Black History Month. So there was nothing debatable there.
No, I can't imagine anybody would oppose to it. Yeah, so that's so. Who were the who were the seconders? Do you remember, or do you have a record of that?
Yes. It was Christiane Gagnon. She was from the Bloc Québécois. She was a member for Quebec. And the member for Kootenay East, I think, was Diane Ablonsi. Okay, and the member for Burnaby Kingsway, Spen Robinson.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that
must have been quite a day. That must have been quite a day.
It was a day, and it was, for me, it was nerve-wracking because I had to make sure that I had spoken to everybody in the House, simply because you don't know, as you know, who's going to be there at the time when I would stand up to put the motion. So everyone had to know that I was going to put the content, and that I would be asking for unanimous consent.
Well, that's a valid point. People need to know that, because somebody could show up who didn't know what you were doing, and they could inadvertently or say no, and that the one person can stop the whole thing. Yeah, so it's a lot of work beforehand.
Yes, actually, when I did the famous 5 to get the statue on the hill, John Nunziatic said no for the whole day. Each time I stood up, he said no. And of course, once you get a no, the motion goes down. But on this, I got unanimous consent, because we had made sure that we had given copies of the motion, had spoken to everybody from the House leaders individually. And those people who said they would second the motion, they said they would do this. And the quid pro quo was that they would talk to their colleagues and make sure that their colleagues were in support. So it was a lot of work for months.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's very much a ground game. You have to go around one by one and get everybody on board. But listen, Jean, well done. And here we are 25 years later, and people are celebrating it in Parliament and outside of Parliament across the country, rightfully so. But yeah, it's remarkable. But people don't realize how much effort and hard work you had to put into making this happen. They did, now it's a matter of fact, and people can celebrate the month, but everybody owes you a great deal of thanks. So on their behalf, let me just say thank you. So that's fantastic. And here we are. I remember many years ago, I was working downtown before I was in politics, and I was stopped on the street, and somebody handed me a flyer, said, February is Black History Month. I said, not only do I know that, I said, my friend Jean Augustine is the one who made it happen. And I was so proud, Jean. The person sort of looked at me like, you know Jean Augustine? I said, oh yeah. They were quite taken aback. So well done, and thank you. So tell us, well, why don't we move forward 25 years? I know that February is a very, very challenging month to get a hold of you now, because you're in demand to do things like this and talk to people and to continue, spreading the message. So tell us about sort of how things are going right now and what's happening.
Right now, I've been very busy. And as I said to you, I'm zoomed out. I've been doing all these virtual calls. I've been doing them with schools and classrooms and with educators, because I think this is important for young people to understand the significance and the importance of getting to know this history and getting to know their neighbors. I think this pandemic time has brought focus to this 25th anniversary. The fact that we've had
Yeah.
time to reflect, the fact that we are in conversations around George Floyd and systemic discrimination, anti-Black
Yeah.
racism, and examining and talking about what we need to do in the society. The pandemic has opened up and showed us the gaps that there are, whether it's in health, whether it is who are the essential workers, what are their faces, what do we see as important things to recognize, whether it's nurses and people who work in homes and caregivers, etc. We see that the importance of recognizing everyone in our society. And so all the
Yeah.
conversations around justice, social justice, fairness, equity, recognition of diversity, boardrooms are now looking around and saying, whose voices are around the boardroom? Who are the managers? Who are making decisions? Who are getting promotions within our organizations? Who are our neighbors? And a word that has really come into the vocabulary now is the word allyship. Who are our allies? And how can our allies help all of us to work to make sure that we live in an equitable society, so that when we move forward after the pandemic, after the 25th anniversary celebration, that we we're entering a world that is different from the world prior to 2020. By the way, Jamie, I'm not too sure if I said this, but Black history is Canadian history. It's all of our history. And Black History Month and its celebrations is not just for Black people. It's for all of us to know each other's history, to know that the Americans hold up their Rosa Parks, where we have Viola Desmond, that they hold
Right.
up their musician, and we have our Oscar Peterson, that we can go on and on with Black Canadians of African descent who've been making contributions to Canadian society. So that's a time to recognize, to give voice, to integrate or various and varying places of endeavor to make sure that everybody has a voice around the table and everybody's given an equal opportunity to reach their full potential in the society.
Right. You're absolutely right. I mean, this pandemic has laid bare a lot of systemic problems that people may have known about but didn't pay close enough attention to because they didn't need to. But on social issues, financial issues, racial issues, and it's caused everybody to sort of sit back and reflect on these things. And there'll be some positive outcomes as a result of that. So you're absolutely right. Now, something I knew, but I hadn't connected the dots until I was thinking about it recently. The first Black provincial member of Parliament in Ontario was also from Etobicoke, Leonard Braithwaite.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I knew him. In fact, he was first elected in 1963, I
He was
believe.
a liberal too.
He was a liberal too. That's right. Thank you for pointing that out, just in case there was any doubt. Well, and he went to make a bit of a political comeback, and he ran in 1985. And my
Yes,
mother actually ran his campaign for
yes,
him.
yes.
So it's Etobicoke is the home of a lot of firsts, so we have a lot to be proud of. But so tell us some of the other things you're doing. Like tell us about Jean Augustine Center. We've got you have an event coming up there in the next couple of days. So why don't you tell the people
Yes,
watching at home
yes.
about the center, all the good things you do there, and about the
Yeah.
event that's coming up.
Okay. The Jean Augustine Center for Young Women's Empowerment is at 101 Portland Street, which is off Royal York Road, just south of Evans. And in that building, we work at empowering young women. We have young girls who come after school and they are from age 7 to 17. And we do different things to have them acquire skills. We help with their homework activities. We help them to find mentors and role models. We provide a safe environment. We promote STEM programs, yoga, mindfulness, self-defense. We entrepreneurial skills. Uh, we run the gamut of activities. We have no test and no exam, so the girls love it. It's a safe place. They come in and they learn, and we're there for them, and we support them in their many activities. We've been carrying on since COVID, virtually, and as a result, girls all over the GTA are now taking advantage of our programs because all they need is just to link into us and they can
You
take
can
advantage of
participate
it. They
online.
can participate online. Yes.
Yeah.
We had a major donor in the area, very, very generous, who got us started, who provided us with the space that we're in. But of course, with COVID came, everybody had to begin to look at their businesses and what was for them some difficulties. And so we lost the major donation. But since we've recovered, people have been very generous in making donations to us. We've had to go out and seek grants, and so we're in a good place right now and continue to do our programs. We usually, in the past, the last 5 years or so, we've had a fundraiser, a Black History Month fundraiser, where we would have performers, and we'll have the different schools, the high schools and whatnot, collaborate with us. And Jamie, you've been there year after year. So this year we're doing it virtually, and we want to invite the entire community on the 20th to join us in this Black History Month activity. And we're asking you to make a donation of some kind, because it is for the girls. It is to sustain and maintain a center of excellence for girls in Etobicoke Lakeshore. Join us. It's going to be online. We have our information out there, whether it's in Councillor Mark Grimes' newsletter or the Member of Parliament newsletter. We have all the information out. The center itself has been communicating out, and we want to see the whole community join us for this Black History Month event and make a donation to the cause. And
Well, that's great. Listen, it's truly remarkable. Again, I mean, I remember when the center started, as you said, thanks to the kindness of the one donor. Things have changed during the pandemic, but because of all of the great work you've done over the last several years, people are now stepping up and making sure that you continue, because anybody who knows there knows what I'm talking about. You see this facility. It's a great facility. It's great services, great in there, and benefit greatly from it. It's kudos to you. And again, in a sort of a twist of fate, because we're living in a virtual world now, it's given the opportunity to other people who don't live in the community. They're now finding out about it, and they're, so that you might be able to build on that, or you will be able to build on that when we get through this and we're back to an in-person world. And as for your event, I will be there, and anybody listening, you should all participate. it's a great event for a great cause, and I would encourage everybody to help out Jean and help out the facility and keep the program and
There are
the
over
all the
200
programs.
girls.
Yeah,
There,
see, that's
yeah.
fantastic, Jean.
There are over
That's
200
fantastic.
girls, and we have not been charging, anything for the programs because the donations we get and hopefully the grants that and the funds that we've asked for help us to pay for the instructors, to provide material for the programs, etc. And there's a lot of goodwill. And I want to thank everybody who's stood with us, who supported us, and the girls. We had one girl the other day with us on and on radio, and she came in. I remember the first day she came in, shy, wouldn't even tell us her name, and now she's a
Yeah.
she's a star now. And this is what we
See,
see.
that's the kind of thing. Yeah.
Yes.
That's fantastic. So you see my ears, my eyes sort of wander off to the side periodically. I'm reading the comments on our Facebook. There isn't many questions, Jean, but everybody's just praising you and all the good work you've done. And our friend Noel Semple just put up something which should have occurred to me, and that's the website for the Jean Augustine Center. It's jeancenter.ca. People who want to learn more about it, have a look at the website, and you
Yes.
can find out about all the great work you do and the
Yes.
upcoming event.
Yes. Yeah.
But I strongly encourage everybody to learn more about it and get involved if you can. So, well, that's great. Now, tell us. Now, I know you had mentioned York University earlier, but
Yes.
York University is not just something that's important to you earlier in your career. It's also something that's a big part of your life going forward, and a big part of your legacy as well, Jean, for
That's right.
all of the tremendous things you've done. So,
Mhm.
why don't you share some of about the chair at York and
York. Yeah.
let some people know about that?
Yeah. Jamie, when I was minister for multiculturalism, Sheila Cobbs was the minister for Canadian Heritage, and she
Right.
threw a few things onto the minister for multiculturalism, and one was museum and archives, and the other one was chairs at university, and asked if I would do some work around that. I was surprised when chairs came in from all across the universities and colleges across the country, and there was no chair at the university that spoke to Black experience, community development, diaspora issues. And I, again, was taken by the fact we need to change this. So when I kept asking around, the information is that a chair at university is given by an individual or a company or a center or whatever. A chair is $3 million. They put $3 million on the table. The $3 million is endowed. The interest from the endowment goes to the work of the chair and the purpose for which the chair was set up. And the chair remains in perpetuity because the 3 million remains endowed in perpetuity. Mm-hmm. So I thought, well, I want to do that. I want a chair that would speak to the experiences of community, of the work that is important for those in the diaspora, those of us. And these days we have acronyms now, BIPOC and others to be engaged. And so after I was, you know what happens in the parliament at the end of your term, when you say I'm leaving, they say, okay, we'll help you pack. So they packed
Something to look forward to.
They packed all my boxes and, all my things in boxes, nicely labeled and everything. So I had about 350 boxes. And my colleagues had had passed a hat around and they bought the chair. So my physical chair from the House of Commons was bought for me. So I had my chair, and then I had my speaker's robes and, the speakers, and all that stuff. So the Archives of Canada said, we would like to keep your things in the archives here in Ottawa. And it's not because I don't want to be immodest and say because I was all that important, but because I was the first Black woman to set foot in the Parliament of Canada. At some point down the line, 100 years from now, my things maybe would have some relevance. But anyway, I thought I would like to bring my
Well,
things to
I would say they're relevant now, Jean. Yeah.
yes, that's what I'm finding out now. So anyway, I brought the boxes to Toronto, and I had a storage room right across from Costco, and 10 by 10, and I was paying about $300 and something a month, and I kept thinking, I have to get this somewhere in a university setting, in an archive. And so I started to to kind of shop around. I went to Ryerson, U of T, which is my alma mater. That's where I have my BA, my MEd, both from U of T. And everyone wanted, the archival material. But then I was able to negotiate with York, who said they would take it immediately. And they sent, and the chief archivist, Michael Moore, he came, he looked at this, and he says, that's really great stuff in here. You have to take it away from this hot, it needed to be in a specific area. So York University took all the stuff, brought it to York, put all the stuff out, the boxes out, opened them up, categorizing, put active archivist on this, etc., etc. So my stuff are all archived at York University, being used by MEd, teacher education, because it is in the Faculty of Education. So now that they have my stuff, I decided, so I started talking to them about how we could, what I would like in terms of, because you get money for your archival material, or you get tax receipt if I had left it in Ottawa. And I started chatting with them about what we could do. And I said, I'd like to see a chair in community education and diaspora issue, a chair that would look at access and advance access, equity, inclusivity through education, that we could prepare teachers, PhD students, and ensure that that chair engages in community responses and research and partnerships and everything that should happen in the community to bring us to that just society and provide information. So the chair is $3 million. I don't have $3 million. I tried to get some from you, Jamie, but you were always too busy to talk about money. So I
don't have $3 million either, Jean.
So anyway, the York agreed that I agreed that I would look for $2 million in the community, and York said they will match as we go along. So the chair has been up since 2007. The professor who holds the chair is Dr. Carl James. He's internationally known, world renowned, and he provides excellent leadership in the chair. And for the chair. So we're now at the point, Jamie, where we're looking for 1.2 million to close off the endowment. And I've been using an analogy that it's like a house. The 3 million is the basement. We get lots of program money for the work of the chair. But my interest is to get the endowment complete, to get the basement complete. And so we're out there. We have a campaign now. Accenture Canada has provided $25,000 because of the 25 years, connected to the 25 years of Black History Month. And they're asking like companies and individuals and whatnot to make donations so we can match, they can match the donations that we get. So this is where we are right now. And I'm encouraging everybody to help me, help us to have a chair at the university, so at least our young people, as they walk through the university, they can see something that they could connect with, that would say, we are here, we are part of the development, we are making contribution to the university to academic, in academic circles and in professional circles. So 1.2 million is the goal. So ready to put that on the table?
Well, maybe some of our listeners are aware of that. Maybe they'll help out now. Well,
Yes.
no, but I mean, kidding aside, it's an important endeavor, and it's your legacy, but it's also, for, as you say, for all of the people in the future who are going to be benefiting from that program and learning so much about it. So I skipped over one very important part, and I see we're sort of the time on the clock. We should think about, we could talk all night, Jean. There's so many fascinating stories, but I didn't talk about two very important things. Your appointment as a minister of the Crown, and subsequently you were the Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons. Two very, very prominent, important roles. So tell us about that. And you became minister. You became Prime Minister Kretchen appointed you to cabinet. What year was that?
Oh my goodness. You're stretching
Where's
my
that?
memory now. Was it 99 or 2000? Sometime around there.
Well, that's why I was looking for that piece of paper earlier, because that would have had the year on it.
Yes. I was, first of all, Secretary of State. That was a nomenclature that was used. Secretary of State for Multiculturalism and the Status of Women. And then the name was changed when Paul Martin became Prime Minister. He changed it to Minister of State for Multiculturalism and the Status of Women. And then Mr. Martin was also the one who took me out of cabinet when they got someone from BC and they felt there was an imbalance. Too many of us from Ontario were in cabinet, and they wanted to have the member from BC, what was his name now? Raymond? Is it Raymond?
No, I know who you mean. Graham.
Chinese name.
Not Graham.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was thinking somebody else.
Yeah. So anyway, he was moved into cabinet. I was taken out, and then I was voted in into the Speaker's chair, and that is really I'm really very proud of that, because it was on the consent of the other all the opposition party members. So when your own prime minister had taken you out, and then the opposition kind of agreed to the fact that I was not going to go back into the benches, as it were, but that I was going to get into the Speaker's chair. I'm very, very, very pleased that I had this acquiescence all around the chamber. And I think that leads me to make a boast, and that is I got the Lifetime Achievement from Maclean's magazine. And I thought, look how long I left the Parliament of Canada, and I'm still remembered and still voted in the process that they worked, that they used. And so some of the stuff that we did were really great things. And I put Etobicoke Lakeshore on the map in the House of Commons, and I know that you are doing the same thing.
Well, Jean, I'm not to complain, but to this day, people say, "What's you're riding again?" And I'll say Etobicoke. Oh, that's Jean's riding. Well, actually, it's my riding now. But and people in the community still remember you. So I say, some people still think you are the MP, and some people wish you still were. And there's a lot of truth to that. But as for you becoming Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons, that's quite an accomplishment. And as you quite rightly point out, it's something that all the members in the House of Commons agree on. So it speaks volumes of how highly regarded you were at the time. And as I say this now, I think whenever I give tours to people in the House of Commons, or back in the days when I could do such a thing, young people always say, "Who's the person that sits up at the end of the room in that chair?" I said, "Well, let me give you an analogy. It's like the teacher in your classroom. They're in charge and you do what you say. And if you don't do what they say, they can, send you out of the room." So you sort of give full circle, Jean. You started as a teacher and you ended up as Speaker in the House of Commons. So you came by it naturally. You had the skill set. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was always.
And you do physically have the chair though, too.
Yes. So my chair is at York University.
Listen, That's fantastic. So Jean, look, we're coming up on the close of the hour here. There's so many things that you have done. Your career, to call it remarkable, is an understatement. We talked about Maclean's magazine recognized you this year with a Lifetime Achievement Award. You know, you're very deserving. You're deserving of every accolade thrown your way. And what's one of the things that remarkable about you now is you haven't slowed down at all. You're still going strong. You're still very busy. You're incredibly active with your center or community events, not only in Etobicoke but across the country. And COVID hasn't even slowed you down because now you're doing it on Zoom. So you've
Yes.
adapted like everything else. So listen, I consider myself very fortunate to have you as a friend, an ally, and a mentor. And I appreciate everything you've done for me, that's for sure. And one other thing we should mention is March 8th is International Women's Day.
Mhm.
And one of the traditions that's been carried on in Etobicoke Lakeshore for many, many years is that we have an International Women's Day breakfast. It's not going to be a breakfast in person this year. We're going to do it by Zoom. So stay tuned. And our guest of honor is none other than the Honorable Jean Augustine. So I look forward to
Again, full
having a
circle, because I started the
exactly,
breakfast.
exactly. You set the bar high, and I'm just working hard to try to keep it at that level, Jean. So
That's good.
it's quite a challenge, but it's one I'm proud to
Yes,
try to do.
yes,
So
yes,
listen,
yes.
honestly, thanks so much for being here tonight. As I said, you can go on Facebook after and you can see all the very, very kind comments. The one that stood out to me is, and I think it might have been more than once, somebody said Jean Augustine for Governor General. So
I'm too old and my French is rusty.
no, you'd be great. You'd be fantastic, Jean. You'd be fantastic. Uh, but listen, thank you. And I look forward to, I really look forward to seeing you in person sometime soon, but we'll
Yes.
be talking soon on
On the
phone and on Zoom.
20th. Mhm.
On the 20th, I will see you then. And hope to
Yes.
see everybody else on Zoom there too. So, Jean, thank you for everything.
Thank you, and hello, everybody, and goodbye.
All right. Have a good night.